with an attitude, kind of, you know. If somebody said something wrong, if I thought somebody said something wrong, you know, we're fighting, you know, or worse.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Hello YouTube. I often get asked how to make it 29 years. Why am I not bitter? Because, you know, I went to prison for defending my brother. So I'm going to kind of answer both of these. Try to, anyway. The surviving the 29 years, I'm not sure if the person meant, or people who ask that mean physically or mentally. And it takes both, really. You got to be kind of mentally strong, and I think I'm more mentally strong now than when I went in. But when I went in and I got to the Missouri State Penitentiary, you know, I was just a farm boy, and, you know, I hadn't been around a whole lot of violence or any of that, you know. I did stand up for myself, but I was still just that farm boy, you know. And then one day, I'm in the cell, and I'm kind of spaced out. And my cellie tells me, he goes, "Hey, you can't be spacing out like that in here." And he goes, "What's going on anyway?" So I told him, I said, "You know, I got a life sentence, and I feel that we're all going to, good possibility we won't make it out of here." And he goes, "That may be true," but he says, "You know, as long as you're a man, you know, then it doesn't matter." And he goes, let's not even talk about this. Let's just smoke one." So we smoked the joint, but it's right then when I changed. I went through several phases through my time in prison, and this was the first one. I said, my thought process was, I got a life sentence. I may not make it out of here. What can anybody say to me? So I went around with an attitude, kind of, you know. If somebody said something wrong, if I thought somebody said something wrong, you know, we're fighting, you know, or worse. And so years later, I get transferred. I go to Farmington. Now, I told you that I had the mentality of the walls that came with me. Now, I told you in other videos that at the walls, you sat on one side, and, you know, it was segregated, self-segregated. But it was not only that, but you sat in the same seat every time. You didn't let nobody take your seat. So I had that same attitude when I got to Farmington. I went to chow with my cellie, and we sat down at a table. I did not know that here it was different, and you just sat wherever there was an open spot. So the next day, I went down there, and my cellie didn't go. And I tried to sit in the same spot, and there was somebody sitting there. And I said, "Hey, you're in my seat." And the guy, you know, he kind of smart about it. He said, "I don't see your name on it." Well, I'm getting ready to blast the guy when this other guy goes, "Hey, did you come from inside?" When somebody says, "Did you come from inside?" they was asking if you came from the walls. And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, they don't do that here." And by this time, this other guy's getting up, and he tells the guy, he goes, "Man, he comes from a place where you sit in the same seat every day." And he says, "Here you just sit wherever you can, you know." And at the time, I thought that was kind of strange, you know. It wasn't segregated. I mean, it'd be mostly blacks at the same table, and mostly whites at the same table, but it wasn't like one side and the other side. And one day I was on the yard, and I just got out of the hole for fighting, and this old head sees me, and he said, "Hey, let's walk, talk." And I knew him, but I didn't know him real well. So we're walking and talking. We're talking about the walls, you know. And, you know, he's asking, "You remember when this happened? You remember when that happened?" And we're just talking about different things that happened back there, you know, the different stories and things we did and stuff. And then he says, "You're a good person, but you can't," he goes, "I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but you can't anytime somebody says something wrong, blast them. That's the way I can. He goes, it's going to make your time a lot harder. He goes, you know how it, you know the saying, don't let the time do you, you do the time. Meaning, you know, don't let the place get to you and everything. He goes, you're right, you shouldn't let people disrespect you and things, but he says sometimes you take it a little too far, you know. And he said, don't lose what goodness is in you, you know. So I kind of changed again then, you know. It was then that I started, well, I have to back up a little bit. When I was at the walls, I thanked this one guy, this old head, for, you know, him and others kind of schooled me when I got there, and so I was kind of thanking him one day, you know. And he says, hey, don't thank me. He said, you're doing a life sentence. He said, one day there'll be a young guy come in and you'll need to help him, you know. So at my time when I was at Farmington, I started changing it. I mean, it wasn't like an immediate thing after that guy talked to me. It was a slow thing. And then by the time I had done several years, I started seeing young people come in. I mean, just teenagers, you know. And it seemed like they was getting younger all the time, but you know, they said the same thing when I came in, you know. So I kind of understood what they meant then, you know, when they were saying, oh, you're just a kid, you know. People are getting younger and younger coming to prison. So I felt the same way looking at these guys. And I made a decision then that to help them, you know, not fight their fights for them. You know, you don't do that. They got to fight their own battles. But, you know, you can make sure they don't get jumped or anything. But you can also school them and try to tell them things that, you know, you've learned over the years and stuff. And that's what I did. Before I got out, I made a decision that I was going to help people when I get out. You know, try to keep people from going to prison. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. So when I first got out, I was just talking to young people and telling them, you know, hey, you know, you mess up, this is what's going to happen. And Missouri doesn't care. You know, mommy and daddy ain't always going to get you out of things. Some things they won't be able to get you out of. And whether it's because you did something wrong or because you thought you was doing something good like I did, Missouri doesn't care. They'll throw you in prison and might even throw away the key, so to speak. I was fortunate the whole time. You know, people ask how I made it 29 years. A lot of it was because of things that old heads taught me, you know. Some of it was luck. I know it was luck. Some of it, you know, there's no explanation. But mentally, how they make it all those years, it's like the guy said, do the time, don't let time do you. Don't be thinking about the outside constantly. Don't be dwelling on things. I've seen people go crazy. I mean, literally go crazy because focused on the outside. The guy in Farmington one time, he used to go get as close to the fence he could and just look out because, you know, he was from Farmington and he went nuts. But anyway, when I get out, I start talking to young people and stuff. And then one day I found this website called Quora. And I didn't know what it was. And I was going through there and I seen a prison question. And I thought about this question and I thought about it. It was a hard question. I answered it on here the other day. So I answered it. And then I started answering more and more questions. The strange thing is, this was the beginning of another kind of change in me. The strange thing is, I was trying to educate people on the prison system, and I was trying to keep young people from going to prison. The prison system is corrupt. So there is. I mean, they don't even treat their officers right. I was getting comments from people that saying that I've helped them. I wasn't even expecting it. It was like older people. And it just amazed me. I mean, I'm still amazed by it, and I'm humbled by it. And anytime somebody says things like that, you know, it's just, it means I'm doing something right. I'm trying to anyway. And it just, I mean, it's humbling. So then people on Quora said, you need to start a YouTube video channel. And I didn't want to, but I did eventually. You know, I mean, it took them a while. It took others, you know, and I didn't know what to expect of it, this, you know. But my hope is to reach people, to educate people on the corruptness of the prison system, hopefully keep people from making bad decisions that will end them in prison, and, you know, to let people know that's getting out of prison that, you know, not to give up. So I hope I've answered both of these questions to you guys' satisfaction, and if not, just, you know, ask me, you know, comment, ask me, you know, anything you want. Look, I'm brutally honest, even when it comes to myself. So any questions you have, or any comments, feedback you have, I want to hear from you. And share these videos. If you think, especially if you think you're going to help somebody, share them. And if you're new, subscribe. And I thank you for watching.
We are dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust. Search for